Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at how businesses take these massive, lofty visions and actually turn them into day-to-day success. It's a journey every organization has to take, but man, is it fraught with challenges. Today, we're going to unpack the absolute foundations of strategic planning. And most importantly, we're focusing heavily on goals and objectives, how they act as this concrete bridge between what a company wants to achieve and what it actually does on a random Tuesday. Let's build that bridge.
So here's a question for you. Why do so many brilliant business visions completely fail to become reality? We see it all the time, right? A company rolls out this incredible, inspiring vision, but a few years down the line, they haven't moved an inch. Why does that happen? Well, it's because having a vision is an entirely different beast from actually executing a strategy. There's a huge gap there. And that missing bridge between dreaming big and actual implementation, that is exactly where most brilliant ideas go to die.
Now, back in 1989, Gary Hamel and C.K. Prahalad coined this incredible phrase. They said, strategic intent works like an obsession. And I absolutely love that. Strategic intent is literally this obsession with winning. It's an active, relentless management process that focuses the entire organization's attention on the sheer essence of winning. We're not talking about a casual goal here. It works like an obsession, sometimes one that's way out of proportion to a company's current talents and resources. But here's the catch. To harness all that raw obsession, you absolutely need a highly structured framework.
So here's our agenda for today's explainer. We'll start with 1, the strategic foundation, then move to 2, hierarchy of strategic intent, 3, goals versus objectives, 4, financial and strategic objectives, 5, executing the plan, and wrap up with 6, avoiding implementation pitfalls.
Let's jump straight into Section 1, the strategic foundation, defining the future.
Look, before you can build a house, you need a rock-solid base. In business, that base is your strategic foundation. Now, strategic planning isn't just a one-and-done event. It's a formal, continuous process. It's how leaders evaluate their vision, mission, and goals, and then map out measurable objectives to actually get there. And continuous is the absolute key word here. The business environment is wild. Economies shift, new tech pops up, consumer behaviors change overnight. So your strategic planning has to be this ongoing, living process that lets the organization constantly react and adjust.
Moving right along to Section 2, hierarchy of strategic intent, the funnel of focus.
It helps to think of strategic intent as a giant pyramid. Up at the very top, you have your vision and mission. There are very few of these, usually just one of each for the whole company, but they are highly integrative. They hold everything together. Then as you move down the pyramid, through goals, into objectives, and finally down to specific plans, things become way more specific and much larger in number. This whole structure gives you the framework a firm needs to adopt a predetermined direction.
Before we drill down into the nitty-gritty, we really need to nail down the difference between those top 2 layers. Your vision, that is your long-term aspiration. It's a broad, forward-thinking statement about what the firm ultimately wants to become down the road. Your mission, on the flip side, is all about your core purpose right now. It grounds you in the present, declaring exactly what business the company is in, who the customers are, and why you exist today. Basically, vision is tomorrow, mission is today.
Okay, on to Section 3, goals versus objectives, making intent concrete.
This right here is the absolute core of our explainer. There's a massive, critical distinction between 2 terms that people constantly and incorrectly use interchangeably. Understanding this is the most vital part of building your foundation. Goals are broad, open-ended statements of intent. For example, saying we want increased profitability. It sounds great, but it has no true quantification and no time limit. Objectives, however, are concrete, measurable end states that make those goals operational. They answer how much and by when. So converting that open-ended goal into a hard objective would look like increased profit by 10% in 2017. Objectives are the actual engines that make your goals happen.
So how do you know if you have a good objective? To be a true yardstick for progress, an objective cannot just be a wish, it needs to check some very specific boxes. It must be specific, quantifiable, measurable, clear, and consistent. It also needs to be challenging. The sources actually call these stretch objectives. You want to set them high enough to force the organization to perform at its absolute peak. But above all else, it literally must contain a strict deadline. If it doesn't have a time limit and a hard target, you don't have an objective at all, you just have a really nice thought.
Which brings us to Section 4, financial and strategic objectives, 2 types of targets.
Now, management actually has to set two distinctly different types of objectives if they want to succeed: financial and strategic. Financial objectives are pretty straightforward. It's what management aims to achieve in dollars and cents. Think profit margins, annual increases in after-tax profits, that sort of thing. Strategic objectives, though, are totally different. They are all about your competitive standing. They measure things like market share or long-term competitive advantages. And here's the so what for you. Financial goals keep the lights on and pay the bills, sure. But strategic goals, those are what actually motivate your team to get out of bed in the morning and build a lasting legacy.
To handle the natural tension between those two types of targets, companies use the balanced scorecard framework. This is a brilliant approach because it weaves your financial goals together with things like customer satisfaction, internal processes, and employee learning. Think about it. If a company is purely obsessed with short-term financial objectives, they might accidentally tank their long-term strategic positioning. The balanced scorecard creates this ideal team effort where every single unit in the organization is contributing evenly to both financial health and strategic power.
Next up is Section 5, Executing the Plan, Putting Strategy into Action.
Okay, so having crystal clear objectives is awesome, but it's really only half the battle. Now you actually have to deploy them. You can have the most beautifully specific objectives in the world, but they're utterly useless if they just sit collecting dust on a shelf. To execute successfully, you need 5 elements. First, the right people. Second, those people need adequate resources, meaning actual money and realistic time commitments. Third, a clear management structure with defined authority. Fourth, robust tracking systems so you can monitor progress and pivot when necessary. And finally, a supportive culture that actually rewards success and connects your employees to the overarching mission.
When execution perfectly aligns with strategic intent, the results are just mind-blowing. Take Walmart, for example. Early in the pandemic, they saw a massive 460% growth in daily grocery app downloads. 460%. As our sources note, when COVID-19 hit in early 2020, Walmart didn't just have a theoretical plan. They executed it instantly. They rolled out CDC safety guidelines immediately while simultaneously overhauling their supply chain to meet this crazy, unprecedented demand. Because they already had the right people, resources, and structure in place, their grocery app saw that staggering 460% jump in daily downloads by April 2020 compared to January. That is execution.
And our final section, Section 6, Avoiding Implementation Pitfalls, Why Plans Fail.
Because let's be real, even with the absolute best intentions, things can go off the rails so easily. What are the common pitfalls? Well, the number one most frequent cause of plan failure is a lack of ownership. Right behind that is poor communication of the objectives to the staff. Think about it. If no one feels a direct personal stake in the plan, everyone's just going to go right back to their daily routine. And if you don't communicate the plan clearly, your employees are basically just guessing at what to do. Or on the flip side, managers can get so bogged down in the weeds that they create overwhelming, unfocused plans full of busy work. When that happens, the team simply doesn't know where to start and implementation gets ignored entirely.
So how do we fix this? It comes down to this core idea. Accountability promotes transformation. Employees must not only be held accountable, but they absolutely must be empowered with the authority and the tools to impact their specific objectives. Accountability is a great motivator, but if you give someone an objective and zero authority to make decisions, they're going to resist it. It's just human nature. You have to designate an owner for every single measure. But more importantly, you have to actually step back and let them own it.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a hard look at your own organization. Have you built a solid bridge of measurable, concrete objectives, or are you just standing on a foundation of open-ended hopes? Look at what your team is striving for today. Do those targets have clear, absolute deadlines? Are they quantifiable? Do you actually have the right people and resources actively implementing them right now? Moving from a grand vision to daily execution is a massive challenge, but by mastering the foundations we discussed today, it's one you can absolutely conquer. So I'll leave you with this. Are your company's targets actually measurable objectives, or are they just wishful thinking masquerading a strategy? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I challenge you to go turn your hopes into true objectives today.